Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the let function, a seriously underrated function within Excel. If you've ever wished your formulas were cleaner, faster, or even just easier to read, you're going to love this. The let function allows you to assign names to calculations. Think of it like creating variables directly within your formulas. So instead of repeating complex calculations multiple times, instead you define it once, name it, and then reuse it. Let's have a look at a simple example of how the let function works. So with this let function here, we can see that it asks for a name, the first name, name 1, a value associated to that name, and then we can continue on with name 2 and value 2, or we can define a calculation. So think of it as building up multiple variable names and their associated values, and you can continue doing that, and then at the final step of the formula is to define a calculation that uses those names. So in this example we've got A as our variable name, and that variable is associated to this calculation, 2 times 3, which gives us 6. Then my final calculation in this example is just simply A, which we know is 6, times A, so 6 times 6, and we'd be looking for the result of 36. And there we have it, 36. The alternative to this would have been having 2 times 3 times 2 times 3. Now you can see in this second example, Excel has had to calculate the 2 times 3 not once, but twice, for the same result of 6. So the benefit of this let function is that we've only had to calculate the outcome of that 2 times 3 once, and then we've stored the result of that, and we can continue retrieving that without further calculations within the formula. Now why should you care? Let me give you 3 solid examples of why you should be using the let function. So we've talked about avoiding repetition. If you're repeating the same function, such as an XLOOKUP or an if, or just simple math multiple times, then let lets you write it once and reference it. That means fewer chances for errors. Number 2, better performance. This is especially true with large data sets. Excel recalculates every single instance of your formula. Using let reduces redundant calculations, and that means faster spreadsheets. And finally, cleaner and more readable formulas. Let gives your formula structure. It's like adding comments, but with functional power. Let's look at another example. This is a slightly more complex example where we've got an if function checking whether B6, which is 1, plus B7, which is 10, times B8, which is 5, is greater than 100. So if we highlight this part of the cell, we can peek into the answer, which is 55. So 55 is not greater than 100. And if we step into the value if true element of the if statement, it's saying if that argument is greater than 100, repeat the argument of 55. Or if the if statement is false, then just declare the result as being under 100. So you can see here, we're doing the calculation of B6 plus B7 times B8 at the start of the formula in the if statement, and then also again as the value for true. So how could we improve this? I'm just going to copy this formula and we're going to reuse it below, but this time we're going to improve it by using the let function. So we're going to use let, open parenthesis, and we're going to declare our first variable as result. And for result, we want to do the same calculation that we did twice earlier on, where we got 55. We're going to store that calculation, and then we're going to move on to our end calculation, where we're going to say if result, and you can see the auto prompt has picked up the variable name result, so we can press tab. It's greater than 100, then we want to pull back result, otherwise under 100. Close parenthesis on the if, close parenthesis on the let. We'll just remove that old part of the formula. There we go. Just going to drag this down. You can see in our first example where we had that inefficient repetition of the calculation B6 plus B7 times B8. We've now avoided that by doing the calculation once, storing it as the name result, and then we've called the result twice within our final calculation. Let's talk about what's going on behind the scenes. When you use let, Excel stores the results in memory just once. That is why once we've stored it, we can avoid Excel referencing the same calculations multiple times, and we can pull on that one referenced memory result. Much like how a programmer would store variables in code. This leads to real performance gains in large workbooks or complex data sets, especially when functions like filter or XLOOKUP or dynamic arrays are in use. Here we're going to have a look at an example with multiple variables. Start writing a let statement. Our first variable we could call A, and we could give that the value of 10. Then we're going to have a second variable called B, and we'll give that the value of 20. And then our final result is going to be A plus B. And then at the end of our let statement, we're going to decide which part of that we want to return as the final calculation, which is simply the result. Close our parenthesis on our let, and you can see now we've got A 10, B 20. Our result is A plus B, and we're simply calling the result. You don't have to use single letters. You can make these names as descriptive and useful as you like. So for example, if these were scores in a game, we could call this score 1, this score 2, and then we'd have to change our result to be looking at score 1 and 2. Just notice as we're typing in score, the auto prompt also includes Excel's inbuilt functions. So you can see we can see the scan function here. One little tip for you is if you put the underscore in front of your variable names in a let, then whenever you want to call on your variables, as soon as you type your underscore, you will see all your variables on their own without being clustered in with Excel's inbuilt functions. Just makes it cleaner and easier for you to pick the right ones. So we could press tab on score 1 plus underscore down arrow tab. So now we've got score 1 plus 2 is our result. One thing to note is the availability of the let function is only in Excel 2021 and newer. So Excel 365 is included as well. So try not to use it in workbooks where you might be sharing with people who are on older versions than 2021. And that's the let function. This is a really useful function, and you'll find once you start writing complex dynamic arrays, this really comes into its own. Why don't you try replacing one of your messy formulas with a let function today as practice? You'll be surprised how much cleaner and faster your spreadsheet gets. I hope you found today's video really useful. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps with your support. Drop in the comments what your favourite feature of let is, and we'll look at combining this with the lambda function in future videos. Thanks for watching.